Hi, I'm Carol. This is Rooted in the Chart. This is an astrology YouTube channel. So today what we're going to talk about is just getting your astrology chart. So it can be called a natal chart or your astrology chart, but a lot of people are really just like not sure where to get started. So this is going to be a very short and basic video just so that you know you have your chart, you know you have it right, and just kind of give you a couple of landmarks that you're looking at as a general starting point. So let's get started. Okay, so the next thing you need are 3 pieces of information. You need your birth date, you need your birth time, and you need your birth location. And you can find all this information on your birth certificate, whatever dusty closet it's sitting in. So go ahead and pause this video and go find those pieces of information. Next, what you want to do is put it into a website or an app. If you put it into a website, it's pretty low friction and you get it really quickly without having to download anything, which is nice. But with the app, you kind of have it on your phone at all times. So as you get to know more and more about astrology, it's just a lot more accessible. So if it becomes like a hobby that you really like, I would recommend getting an app. The first app that I used was Astrology Master. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It was just free and there were ads, but I could use it and it was a good place to get started. So I put all of those options up on the screen. I kind of explored them to see and make sure that they were pretty low friction for you. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of these. It's just a good place to get started. Okay, now you have your chart and you're like, what is all this? Like, it is so intimidating when you first get it because it's so much information and you were like, I was just trying to learn something about myself. So don't worry about that. We're going to just kind of break it down really simply in this video. So at least you know what the landmarks are. So you're not like, just super confused about everything. So I'm just going to go one little piece at a time. Okay. So the first thing I want you to notice is that there is a circle that has like slices of pie inside. Each slice of pie is an area of your life, okay? Now, inside the circle, you're gonna see lots of symbols. So these symbols are the planets. It's where the planets were at the moment you were born, okay? And that's why the exact time matters, is that some of the planets move really fast and some of them move very slow. So if you want to know where the fast-moving planets are, you have to know the exact moment of your birth. Okay, so the last thing I want you to look at is that there is on the outside of the circle, there are either words or symbols that are the zodiac signs. And these you've heard before, Pisces, Aries, like these are the zodiac symbols. So I put them up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, the next thing that I want you to notice is these 2 lines that go through the chart. So they create 4 important points on the circle. So you have your ascendant, which is your identity. It's the lenses that you look at the world through. It's like if you're a Pisces rising, then you're always going to be artistic, mystical, and magical. And that's just the way you're going to look at the world. If you're an Aries rising, you're going to be very prone to leadership, and that's just going to be the way that you go about your world, So on the other side of that, we have opposite the descendant. Now the descendant, these are traits that you develop over time. It tends to be what you admire in others. Most of the time, long-term relationships have that sign. So oftentimes married couples have opposite ascendants and descendants because they're looking for the opposite traits that they develop over their life. Not every time, but more times than you would think, okay? Now I want you to look at the one that goes from the top to the bottom. The top is your MC, and that is your career and public identity line. Okay, so that is all around things that are your public image, all right? At the bottom, the IC is your foundation. That's your roots. That's your family. That's like, where you came from. So these 4 angles are so important because they come up a lot in astrology whenever you're having a big transit. So if a planet is going over one of these angles, or you're having, maybe a new moon is hitting one of these angles, it's going to be a particularly powerful new moon. or if you have maybe a Saturn transit going over one of these angles, well, you're going to have to learn what your limits are regarding that angle. So these are very important to be aware of and note. Another thing that I want you to note is that all those lines inside of the circle, those are angles that planets make to each other. So the way that they interact with one another in that moment depends upon the angle they're at that moment. That is all getting a lot more advanced and it can overwhelm you. So I want you to just kind of like know that the planets work with each other or sometimes don't work with each other and get frustrated with one each other. And just kind of make a mental note that that's what that is. Okay, now you have all these things in front of you. And the ones that I really want you to start with to kind of start understanding yourself is number one, I want you to find the moon in your chart. So the moon looks like the moon, so it's very easy to find. The moon is about emotional security, and understanding the way that you seek emotional security can be really helpful in just knowing what you really need to leave room for in your life. I've met a lot of people who have a lot of Pisces in their chart, which is very artistic. And depending upon where it is in their chart, maybe they paint for fun sometimes if it's their ascendant. But if it's somebody's moon, they have to do it or they don't feel well. And I've said that to Pisces moons before, and they're always like, yes, like I absolutely have to do this. I'm not trying to be difficult. So understanding like what it is that helps you with your emotional security is a great starting point. I made a whole video about it. It's linked in the description. So that would be the next stopping point if you want to keep going. Okay. The second thing that I want you to note is Saturn. Saturn is also a very important aspect of yourself to understand. So Saturn is actually a much more challenging place, and it is the only sign that the moon feels called to serve. So wherever your moon is, that's what makes you feel emotionally safe, but wherever your Saturn is, that's where you feel called in your life to do something. But it's also very tricky because it's where you struggle the most in your life. And the house it's in tends to be the hardest house for you as far as area of your life. So understanding that those two work together is a really great place to get started, especially if you're younger and you're trying to decide what you want to do with this life. I mean, it can be really helpful to understand yourself. The other thing to note about Saturn is that it is challenging. And when you're having Saturn transits, it's difficult because Saturn, as you go through life, is trying to make you find your limit. So as you get more mature, you'll start to learn where those limits are. But when you're younger, you just want to throw yourself at that calling. So I'm going to do a whole video on Saturn, and it's linked in the description for you to go through and look at to understand. Okay. If there's anything else I think that is worth noting, really first thing off is definitely the ascendant line and understanding that that is kind of the rose-colored lenses that you have on your eyes throughout your life. So if you have Virgo glasses in your life, then you are going to be very attentive to the details and just very competent. And like knowing that about yourself, you know, I'm sure you do know that about yourself, but it makes a lot of sense. So those three pieces of information, and the ascendant is that line on the left of the chart. Okay. Knowing those three pieces of information is an honestly really great starting point with astrology to not get overwhelmed. If you would like to go into more depth and you would like to do an astrology reading, please reach out to me. My email is up on the screen. I'd love to hear from you and we can set an individual reading. But, you know, I hope to hear from you and leave me some comments. Tell me how I did. And, you know, until next time.